So Admiral, welcome to AOPA Live this week. Appreciate you stopping by.
It's great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell us about NORAD. We've seen it all seen it in the movies and that sort of thing. What's NORAD's mission?
Well, actually, we do much more than track Santa every year, but we have done that. And he's a pilot too. You know that? Right? Yeah, he's got more flight time than all of us.
He's stayed a lot of waivers through the airspace, though.
Well, yeah, he does have a lot of power. He does have a lot of power. Our job's to defend the homelands. North America from aerospace threats, cruise missile threats, and the approaches in the maritime. And so we defend the skies. We've been doing it for almost 58 years. It started up in the Cold War, but has picked up renewed importance, since 9/11 as we've expanded the threats that could come after the homelands.
Right. Well, for general aviation pilots, of course, a lot of that is around temporary flight restrictions. And what can GA pilots do to be more aware of temporary flight restrictions?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because it amazes me. I'm a longtime naval aviator, almost 38 years. And at one point owned an airplane, a Citabria, when I was an ensign in JG with my best friend. So this is the second time I'm a card-carrying member of AOPA.
Oh, well, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and the importance of understanding that we're all sharing the skies together. We want to enjoy the skies. We want to make the skies safe. And the importance of, as I've been teaching young naval aviators my entire career, the importance of proper pre-flight preparation, proper briefs, proper execution, proper debriefs is the way to safely do this particular business. And the way technology has advanced today to help us do that is really phenomenal. Here on my iPad that I Velcro to my knee, I can just pull up and look at my sectional, and right there are the TFRs that I can then tap on and see if what the restriction happens to be. Because here in the National Capital Region, everybody's pretty familiar with it. But they pop up every now and then. So that proper pre-flight, check weather, check NOTAMs, check for TFRs, check for obstructions. Think about how you're going to fly, chair flight to flight, and then go fly and enjoy.
So you mentioned pop-ups. Of course, we had the State of the Union recently, which always has special airspace, but being deep inside the DC airspace, it's not much of an issue for GA pilots because we're already pretty familiar. But we have the Super Bowl coming up.
That's correct.
And that's another one that's got a lot of special procedures around that.
That's correct. Super Bowl, any of the conventions, the parties, conventions that are going to be, we're going to pop these up. Where the president travels, we're going to pop them up that are going to be out there. And of course, not everybody's going to be able to remember where these things are. So once again, it is, if you're going to go flying for a day, see if there's something that's out there, just as if you would check your weather and your NOTAMs. And we're working very carefully down there for the Super Bowl. Everybody wants to be a part of the Super Bowl. I just wish my team wanted to be a part of the Super Bowl, but it's not going to happen. But we want to keep.
Authority only goes so far.
It only goes so far in the checkbook. But we want to keep it safe, and there are people that might want to do harm to our nation and take advantage of these things. Look at the Boston Marathon. So it's our job to make sure that those skies are safe.
Right.
Follow instructions. It's always going to happen sometimes where you didn't get to check your pubs, chum your charts, but follow instructions. Adhere to what they're trying to do. They're trying to help you get to a safe place. And once we get you to a safe place, then we'll deal with what happened. It's important to what was the root cause? What was it? And people make mistakes, and that's okay. It's the ones that are consciously that are out there. And so we want, it's pretty important when we set these TFRs up. We're there to protect somebody, whether it's the people that are participating in the Super Bowl, or it's to protect the President of the United States or other important people. And we're protecting them against a threat to our homeland. That's what we're trying to do. So we're trying to separate the threat from people that just shouldn't be there, as we ask them to, we want to share the skies with them, but on these particular days and at these times in this area, we would rather not share them. Well, if an F-16 pulls, or an F-18 pulls up on your wing, it's probably not a good day. Or in the National Capital Region, of course, an orange and white Coast Guard helicopter. That's going to shock you. And so don't run away. Just look to them. And when we pass in the Navy, When we pass the lead between wingmen, you know, we tap our forehead and we pass the lead. So what I do is pass the lead to that and just follow them where they're going to take you.
Another more recent challenge for airspace, defending airspace, is drones or UAS. Well, where's the FAA, of course, hasn't written any true regulations for that yet. How much of a challenge is that?
I think it's a growing challenge. I think the number are 15,000 a month are being purchased. The quadcopters, and you know, there was just one the other day for the White House. You know, I think we're shooting behind the duck here. You know, for me, we're in charge of, at NORAD, the medium to large, and we'll have a pretty good capability to detect those and defend against those. I'm more concerned, quite frankly, of the safety aspect. We share the airspace, and so they're up there. And the last thing I want to do is the bump plastic against metal or fabric inadvertently. And so knowing where they are and how we're going to educate the operators, how we're going to educate those of us that also share the air, it's going to be important. It's a safety issue to me more than anything else.
So tell me about your Learn to Fly experience. What was that?
Well, I'm a second-generation naval officer, naval aviator, and when I decided I didn't want to be a lawyer, what are you going to do with a history and political science degree? So I said I'll go do what my dad did, and eventually the Navy grudgingly accepted me in, and I'm glad they did. So the first time I flew, other than in a light civil lake amphibian with my dad when I was in high school, my first flight was in a T-28, T-28C. And after 16 hops in that T-28C out of Whiting Field, I soloed. And the airplane I just was looking and traded plane, and the airplane that I got my safe for flight is for sale for $345,000, but the same bureau number. Pretty amazing. But had our solo on our 17th flight in T-28s. And then we had 5 precision acrobatics, 2 of which were solos. And then back then no instrument training yet. We source selected into multi-engine helicopter or into jets, and I was lucky enough to get jets. So from there, went up to Meridian, Mississippi to the T-2C Buckeye, and then to the TA-4J, got my wings. And then went to Beeville, Texas, Naval Air Station, Beeville, Texas, and I instructed for 18 months in the T-2C. And I think that's really important. I spent most of my career as an instructor in the T-2, and then, of course, a lot of time instructing in the F-18. And, you know, it isn't until you teach your profession that you learn your profession. That's when you're really the mark of a true professional, and forces you to really understand. Because if you don't understand it, you're not going to teach it. Right. So that's how I started.
And then how about general aviation? Has it been part of your life all through that?
No, unfortunately it hasn't. When we were instructing, my best friend and I, Mark Ziegler, who's an airline pilot now after he retired after having command of an F-18 squadron, when we were young ensigns, we decided we wanted to get an airplane. So we bought ourselves from a Marine captain, a Citabria 7 ECA, November 90968, and flew it. Had a good time learning how to fly tail dragger, because I say if you haven't flown a tail dragger, you haven't flown. Yeah. And from there, for my wedding, we flew it to Jacksonville when I was getting married, and then he also got married, and we got on opposite ends of the cruise schedules. And you know, our wives weren't excited about an acrobatic tail dragger as we were. Yeah, shocking.
I find that hard to believe.
I know that. But we sold it to our good friends, Lights Leanhouse, who is now running Sun and Fun down in Florida. So wish we never had sold it. It was a phenomenal, fun little airplane.
How many hours do you have?
I'm over 5,300 mishap-free flight hours, about 1,200 and some odd traps.
Favorite airplane?
To be honest, of course, the F-18. It's flew it the longest. Yeah, started flying it in 1983, 1984, and had my last carrier landing. Flew it every other day, a Super Hornet on Harry S. Truman as a 2-star, as Strike Group Commander. Also picked up as an Air Wing Commander, Deputy Air Wing Commander, started flying the H-60. Love flying a helicopter, so.
Yeah, how many traps do you have?
About 1,265.
Yeah. Everybody seems to know that number.
Yeah, it's funny about that. But you know, just when the Commandant of the Marine Corps, another Navy Marine aviator, Tamer Amos, retired, he passed the coveted Gray Eagle Award off to me. So I'm the most senior Navy and Marine aviator on active duty from date of designation.
Wow.
Which means I'm just old.
Any advice for student pilots that you might pass along?
Yeah, you know, I teach that, you know, we're naval aviators and we call ourselves aviators. We don't call ourselves pilots. And, you know, what I tell them is a mark of an aviator. There's aviators and there's pilots. Mm-hmm. Aviators, and it's the differentiation between professionalism and good judgment. And so I've known a lot of naval aviators who are really just pilots. And I ask them which ones do they want to be. And it goes down into knowing your airframe cold, knowing everything about your airframe, how it works, how it operates. Understand the theory of flight. It's really important. You know, there's a lot more than creating lift over wings than keeping your seat tray up and your seat back table up, right? Mm-hmm. And then it goes into that pre-flight preparation. You know, what am I going to do today? Make sure we call chum your charts, check your note tamps, check your weathers. Keep yourself 2-3 options out there, and when you got to use one of those second or third options, you're going to need another one. And then fly it professionally. Try and fly. I remember flying with one of our young lieutenants. He's a doctor now as a captain, Thrill Kramer. And he says, we're doing Provide Comfort. They're south of Turkey. It's just after Desert Storm. And he says, today my goal is to fly a perfect hop. You know, and that's a pretty good goal. Yeah, what did you do? And then when you sit down and you're finished with it, you know, post-flight your aircraft, what are the problems with it? What are the mechanics? You know, what do I need to get fixed on it? And then what did I do right? What did I do wrong today? What could I do better the next time? I think it's important. It's the way we should approach aviation, because it's wonderful to be able to reach up there and reach out and touch the face of God every day, and especially a day like today as we're driving up here. Just a beautiful day. Yeah. But it's not a very dangerous profession, but it is an unforgiving one.
Mm-hmm. One final question then. So was there one particular thing when you were learning to fly that just absolutely stumped you and you really struggled with, and how did you overcome that?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I would have to say throughout my career, I only know probably 10 truly gifted aviators that have really good hands and are really aviator. My best friend Mark Ziegler is one of them that we own the Citabria. Really gifted hands. Me, I'm an average aviator. Okay, I'm an average pilot. I mean, I think I did pretty well because I always knew my weapon system in my aircraft better than anybody else, and I understood my limitations. You know, I got asked the other day, you know, by someone that's outside of aviation, and talked about, I guess it's really important to be a maverick, you know, from the movie Top Gun, which the only real part was the opening scene and the quote, "You never leave your wingman." But I said, yeah, most mavericks are dead because they don't understand their limitations. Understanding your limitations and not pushing them and having those options. And that's why I'd encourage everybody, please get your instrument rating. Whether you think you're going to need it or not, you're probably going to need it someday, because weather people are always wrong.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Admiral, for stopping by. Appreciate
Sure enough. Thanks for having me.